Chapter 1. A Quiet Unease. "Dad, don't park here," Tyler whispered, tugging at my sleeve with urgency. I turned to look at him, puzzled. His brow was furrowed, eyes darting toward the familiar two-car garage at the end of the stone driveway. The floodlight above it flickered once before settling into a steady, dull glow. He shook his head slightly. "Please, just park on the street." It wasn't like Tyler to act nervous. He was a confident kid, quiet, yes, but sharp. A thinker, the type who only spoke when he meant something. I stared at him for a beat longer, then slowly backed the car out of the driveway without asking any more questions. The tires crunched against the gravel as I pulled into a spot on the street, right under the old oak tree I remembered planting over a decade ago. The engine cut off, and we sat in silence for a moment. The house stood before us like a ghost from our past, our old home, the one Melanie and I had poured our lives into for 14 years. Every brick, every window, every blade of grass held memories. Christmas mornings, first steps, late-night talks on the porch swing. All of it. Melanie had insisted we downsize last spring. She said the house was too big, too expensive. That was time for a change. A new beginning. I went along with it because that's what I did. I worked. I provided. I kept things stable. If she said it was time to move, then we moved. But as I looked at that house now, so perfectly lit and decorated for the dinner party she had planned, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the only one who actually left. Tyler opened his door and stepped out. I followed, buttoning my blazer against the evening chill. "You okay?" I asked him, keeping my voice low. He nodded quickly, avoiding my gaze. "Yeah, just you'll see." That wasn't cryptic at all. As we approached the house, I noticed how pristine everything looked. The walkway had been power washed. New lantern-style lights lined the stone path. Even the front door was freshly painted navy blue, with a modern brass handle that definitely wasn't there before. Melanie opened the door just before I could knock. Her smile was wide, white, and camera-ready. "There you are," she said, arms open like she hadn't just texted me 3 hours ago with strict instructions to be exactly on time. "You look good, Jackson." "You too," I said, though my words felt automatic. Her dress was sleek, dark green satin hugging her frame in all the right places. Too much effort for a simple dinner party with old friends, but then again, Melanie always had a flair for appearances. She leaned in to kiss my cheek, and I smelled her perfume, something new and floral, layered over the vanilla scent she used to wear when we were still us. Inside, the house was warm and glowing, filled with soft jazz and the clink of glasses. The place didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a magazine spread. Every room had been redone in the last year, from the furniture to the art on the walls. All modern, expensive, and impersonal. "I see you've kept the place up," I said, my voice tight. Melanie shrugged, guiding us inside. "It just made sense, you know. The market's been unpredictable. I figured we'd hold on to it a little longer." "That wasn't what you said 6 months ago when you were boxing up photo albums and crying in the living room." But I kept that thought to myself. Tyler slipped away quickly, giving me one last meaningful glance before heading toward the kitchen. I noticed the tightness in his jaw, the stiffness in his shoulders. Something was wrong. The air in the house was too clean, too practiced. Like a set on a stage before the play begins. Melanie chatted with other guests, people I didn't recognize. Slick men with too white teeth, and women who laughed too loudly at nothing. I shook hands, smiled, and nodded. I couldn't find anyone from our old neighborhood. Not a single familiar face. "Who are all these people?" I asked Melanie in a quiet moment, as she handed me a glass of wine. "Oh, just new friends from the yoga studio. A couple from the networking group I joined. You'd like them if you tried," she said, her tone just a little too pointed. I looked around again. One man in particular caught my attention, tall, confident, wearing an expensive shirt with the top 2 buttons undone. He was talking to Melanie's friend Shannon, but his eyes kept drifting toward my wife. He smirked. She smiled back, sipping her wine. That smile, it wasn't the one she used to give me. It was newer, more charged. I turned away and sipped my drink, pretending not to notice. I'd spent the last year pretending not to notice a lot of things. Like the way Melanie started coming home late, saying she was just grabbing drinks with the girls. Or the nights she fell asleep on the couch with her phone clutched tight in her hand. Or how she started locking her phone entirely. Every time I raised a concern, it became a fight. You're paranoid. I deserve a life too, Jackson. You're just insecure. Eventually, I stopped asking questions. Now, standing here in the house I paid off over a decade ago, surrounded by strangers, I realized just how far I'd been pushed out of the picture. From the corner of my eye, I saw Tyler peeking down from the second-floor hallway. When our eyes met, he gave the slightest shake of his head and disappeared back upstairs. A chill ran down my spine. "Excuse me," I said to no one in particular and made my way toward the stairs. Melanie caught my arm. "Hey, don't go up there. It's just storage and stuff. You don't need to see that." I stared at her. "It's still my house, right?" Her smile faltered. "Of course. Just don't make things weird tonight, okay? Don't make things weird." God, how many times had I heard that? I nodded and stepped back. "Fine." She walked away, and I watched her link arms with that tall, smug man. They laughed at something he whispered in her ear, and her hand lingered on his forearm. I clenched my jaw and turned away. The night had only begun, but my instincts were already screaming. Something was very wrong, and for the first time in a long while, I knew I wasn't going to pretend anymore. Chapter 2. Red Flags in the Rear View. I don't remember when the first red flag appeared, probably because I convinced myself it wasn't a flag at all, just a gust of wind, a misunderstanding, something I'd misread in the haze of routine and fatigue. That's what you do after 20 years of marriage. You give the benefit of the doubt until it becomes a reflex. It might have started one night when Melanie came home late, much later than usual. She smelled like tequila and sweat, her cheeks flushed. Her hair was still perfect, but her lipstick was smudged. I was sitting on the couch in my work shirt, still half-buttoned, surrounded by leftover pizza Tyler hadn't bothered to clean up. I looked at the clock. 12:41 a.m. "Everything all right?" I asked. My voice didn't accuse, didn't pry. Just asked. She smiled, a little too brightly. "Of course. We went dancing after drinks. You should have seen Shannon. She was all over the bartender." She flopped onto the couch next to me, laughing like it was the most natural thing in the world. I gave a small nod, kept my eyes on the muted television. Some late-night sitcom. Something stupid. Something that didn't ask questions. "Dancing," I repeated quietly. "You didn't mention that part." She took a long sip from the water bottle she'd brought in from the car and shrugged. It was spontaneous. "We're allowed to have fun, Jackson. We're allowed to have fun." That line lingered. Not I, but we. As if I were included in something I hadn't been invited to. Then came a phone thing. She used to leave it everywhere, on the kitchen counter, in the bathroom, face up on the nightstand while she showered. I never looked through it, because I never had to. But something changed. One night, I reached to plug it in for her as she dozed off on the couch. Her eyes snapped open like a switch had flipped. "Don't touch that," she said sharply. I froze, hand hovering inches above the phone. I was just going to charge it. She snatched it from the table, forced a smile. "Sorry. Work stuff. Clients." You know, if I didn't know, Melanie was an interior designer, mostly freelance. Her clients were usually bored housewives or small business owners. Nobody who required code-level secrecy. That same week, she added a new passcode and flipped the phone face down anytime we were in the same room. I'd walk into the kitchen, and she'd tuck it under a napkin like it was a loaded weapon. A few days later, I caught a glimpse of a message that lit up her screen when she left it unattended for 3 seconds. "You were incredible last night, fire." That was it. No name. Just those 6 words and a flame emoji. She came back into the room before I could process it, and I stepped away like a coward. My chest throbbed. My brain screamed at me to say something, but my lips stayed glued shut. I told myself it was a joke, a friend being playful, some text meant for someone else. Because the alternative? That required facing a truth I wasn't ready to deal with. Then came the speeches. Late at night, after a third glass of wine, she'd turned philosophical. Eyes glassy, voice laced with yearning. "I feel like I lost myself in all this," she'd say, staring into the distance. "The house, the kid, the marriage. It's like..." I blinked, and I became someone's wife instead of myself. I'd sit beside her, trying to understand, trying to be supportive. You're still you, Mel. You're just older, wiser. That's life. But that wasn't what she wanted to hear. She wanted validation for her escape plan. I want to explore again. Connections, energy, vibes, real experiences, vibes. She never used that word before Instagram poisoned everyone's vocabulary. I listened. I nodded. I stayed quiet even when it hurt. Because if I challenged her, I'd be the controlling husband, the insecure guy holding her back. And the truth was, I still loved her. Still clung to the memories of road trips, thunderstorms in bed, movie nights where we laughed till we cried. So I let it go. Every time, I let it all go. Work was the only place where I felt in control. I was the guy people came to for answers. My title was Senior Operations Manager, but I was really the company's problem solver. Budget cuts? Jackson will fix it. Supply chain delays? Jackson will call someone and pull a favor. Employee conflict? Let Jackson mediate. I wore calm like armor. Professionalism as religion. No one ever saw me flinch. But inside, I was unraveling thread by thread. Some mornings, I'd sit in my truck an extra 10 minutes before going inside, just staring at the steering wheel, trying to swallow the ache in my chest. I'd tell myself, it's probably nothing. Just a rough patch. Don't blow it out of proportion. I had this habit of rubbing my wedding ring with my thumb, a nervous tic I developed without even realizing it. I caught myself doing it in meetings, during calls, even while eating lunch alone in the break room. One afternoon, I went home early, an unexpected power outage at work. As I stepped into the house, I heard soft music playing. Our bedroom door was half shut. I wasn't trying to sneak. I wasn't suspicious. I was just home. Then I heard her laugh. Not just any laugh, that laugh. The one she used to reserve for our private moments. Not the polite chuckle for strangers, but the open-throated, flirtatious kind that carried energy behind it. I froze in the hallway. No, stop it, she giggled, followed by a long pause. You're such an asshole. Silence. Then something muffled. I backed up and quietly left the house. Drove around for an hour. Didn't say a word about it that night. Because again, maybe it was a friend. Maybe she was watching a funny video. Maybe I was the one going crazy. But I wasn't. Not really. I just didn't want to believe what I already knew. Denial is a comfortable lie. And for a man like me, loyal, devoted, predictable, it was easier to bear than betrayal. So I swallowed it down. Again and again. Pretended the cracks in our marriage were just signs of wear, not rot. That with enough patience, enough time, things would go back to the way they used to be. But the truth was obvious. Melanie wasn't lost. She wasn't searching for herself. She had already found someone else. Chapter 3. The Dinner Party. The moment we stepped through the door, it hit me. This wasn't our house anymore. It looked like it had been ripped from a glossy magazine spread. Polished marble counters that didn't exist when we lived here. A chandelier dripping glass like icicles. Velvet chairs. Candles in ornate holders that smelled like sandalwood and fake sophistication. Music pulsed softly from hidden speakers. Smooth jazz. The kind rich people play to make silence feel expensive. I blinked, trying to reconcile this showroom with the home where we once lived. The walls weren't even the same color. They'd painted over everything, every memory, every laugh, every late-night fight and early morning hug. All gone under a coat of trendy off-white. Tyler hung back near the door, still gripping my sleeve like we were walking into enemy territory. I glanced down at him. His eyes were scanning every surface, his jaw tight. You good? I whispered. He nodded too fast. Just don't let them get to you. Them? Before I could ask what he meant, Melanie emerged from the kitchen like a hostess at a gallery opening. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, black, backless, hugging curves I'd long forgotten she still flaunted. Her hair was swept up, lips crimson, a glass of wine already in her hand. There you are, she said brightly, like we were guests she barely remembered inviting. Jackson, Tyler, come in, come in. She kissed Tyler on the cheek, too quick, too staged, then turned to me. I expected a peck, a smile, something. Instead, she brushed past and placed a hand on the arm of a man standing nearby. This is Trey, she said, her voice laced with something I couldn't name, but instantly hated. From the gym. The man turned and grinned, two perfect teeth, Tight shirt stretched across a barrel chest, tan like he paid for it. He extended a hand to me. Jackson, right? Heard a lot about you. I'm Trey. Liz talks about you all the time. Liz. He said it like it belonged to him. Like he'd earned the right to call her that. Melanie laughed, a high, fluttery sound, and swatted his arm. Oh, stop. He'll think we're gossiping. Wouldn't dream of it, Trey said, still holding my hand a moment too long before letting go. I faked a smile. My teeth clenched. Tyler glanced at me like this is what I was warning you about. Around us, people moved like extras in a scene that wasn't mine. They were Melanie's new crowd, air-kissing women in gold bracelets, men in linen shirts who talked too loud about market shifts and personal trainers. Everyone had the same smug, polished look, like they'd all been ordered from the same boutique catalog. I stood awkwardly by the kitchen island while Melanie floated from group to group, topping off wine glasses and laughing a little too loudly at jokes no one else found funny. Jackson, a woman said, suddenly beside me. I'm Chloe, Melanie's new yoga friend. She pronounced yoga like it was a political stance. Oh, nice to meet you, I replied, shaking her cold hand. She tells us you're in, what was it, logistics? That's cute. We all say she traded up since she moved back here. I blinked. Moved back here. Chloe's lips curled into something between a smirk and a compliment. Well, it is her house now. She's really made it hers again, hasn't she? Totally transformed the space. Before I could respond, she drifted off toward a group of laughing women like she hadn't just sucker punched me in the gut. I tried to find Tyler, but he wasn't by the door anymore. Don't go upstairs, Dad. I jumped. He was behind me now, eyes scanning the stairs. What? He leaned in, his voice low. Just trust me. Don't go. Ty, what the hell is going on? He hesitated, jaw twitching. Just not tonight, okay? Don't give them what they want. Them. He kept saying it like we were in the middle of a war. I walked away from the main crowd, trying to breathe. The hallway was darker, quieter. My shoes echoed softly on the hardwood as I moved toward the dining room, then the living room, then the hallway that once led to our bedroom. Except it wasn't our bedroom anymore. The door was open. Inside, the space had been stripped bare. The bed was smaller, no longer ours. The walls were repainted. No pictures, no warmth, just cold perfection. A guest room. I stepped back, heart pounding. That room used to hold everything, our whispered plans, our Sunday mornings tangled in sheets, the nights we cried over losses and promises and things we couldn't name. It had been our sanctuary. Now it was just another curated space in Melanie's new life. I turned back toward the living room and froze. The walls, where our family photos once hung, were bare. No graduation pictures. No beach trip snapshots. No wedding photo with me awkwardly in my tux, holding her close under the cheap arch her father built. Replaced. Or worse, erased. It was like I never existed. I stood there, fist clenched, stomach twisting. And then I saw Trey again. He was laughing with Melanie, his hand on her lower back. Too familiar. Too confident. Melanie glanced my way, and for a split second, her smile dropped. Just a flicker of guilt or panic. But then it was back, brighter than ever. She walked toward me, wine glass still in hand. Everything okay? She asked, voice casual. I stared at her, at the woman I thought I knew. Where are all our photos? She blinked. What? The pictures. Of us. Of Tyler. Oh, she waved a hand. I packed them up. They didn't really go with the new aesthetic. Didn't go. 20 years, a life built together, reduced to a design choice. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I walked past her toward the front door. I heard footsteps follow, but it wasn't Melanie, it was Tyler. You saw it, didn't you? He asked quietly. Yeah, I said, staring out the street, breathing through the ache in my chest. He stood beside me. She's not the same anymore. No, I said. She isn't. I didn't know what was worse, realizing it, or knowing he had realized it before me. Chapter 4. Clues and Cracks. The drive home was a quiet one, but not peaceful. Melanie sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone with her legs crossed, as if the evening hadn't felt like a slap across the face. Tyler was silent in the back, earbuds in, arms folded tight across his chest. I gripped the steering wheel like it might fly out of my hands if I loosened up. The white picket fence life we'd once built felt miles away. In its place, an invisible chasm growing wider by the day. Melanie broke the silence first. "Well," she said, her tone too bright. "I think the party went well. Don't you?" I kept my eyes on the road. "It was something." She laughed. "Oh, come on. Everyone was nice." "Nice," I repeated. She finally looked up from her phone. "Okay, what's your problem?" "I don't have a problem," I said, but even I didn't buy it. "Really? You've had that storm cloud look since we walked in." I exhaled slowly, then glanced her way. "I just didn't expect Trey." Her eyebrows arched like I'd brought up a dirty word. "Trey? What about him?" "He seemed close," I said carefully. "Familiar." Melanie blinked, then let out a laugh that felt rehearsed. "Oh my God, Jackson. Don't be insecure, babe. He's just a friend. A friend who calls you Liz and puts his hand on your back like he owns it. You don't want to be that husband, do you?" she snapped, the smile vanishing. "The jealous, paranoid one? That's not attractive." I looked back at the road, jaw tightening. "Didn't say I was jealous." "Then drop it." Her voice was final, sharp. She turned back to her phone, her thumbs tapping rapidly. I gripped the wheel harder. My fingers ached from it. Later that night, after we dropped Melanie off at her car, because apparently she had other plans, I drove home alone with Tyler. He didn't say a word the whole ride. Not until we got into the driveway, and I put the car in park. He stared out the windshield, breathing like he was building up the courage to punch through glass. Then, softly, "Dad, I need to tell you something." I looked over at him, startled. "What is it?" He still wouldn't look at me. "You know how Mom said she sold the old house?" "Yeah." He finally turned. His eyes were filled with something older than 17, anger, hurt, something that didn't belong on a boy's face. "She never sold it," he said. "She's been staying there some nights. Trey sleeps over." My throat went dry. My hand stayed frozen on the wheel. The silence in the car swelled like it wanted to scream for me. I turned my head toward him slowly, like moving too fast might break something inside me. "What?" Tyler nodded, jaw clenched. "I've seen it. I didn't know how to tell you." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The cracks weren't just showing now. They were splitting wide open. Chapter 5. Digging for Truth. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, elbows on my knees, staring into the darkness while the ceiling fan spun uselessly above. Melanie hadn't come home. Tyler had long gone to bed after saying, "I'm sorry, Dad," like he was the one who'd failed me. But I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at the truth because deep down, some part of me already knew. I just refused to believe it. But now that the door had cracked open, I couldn't stop myself. The need to know burned hotter than the pain. It wasn't enough to suspect anymore. I had to see it. I had to make it real. So I got up, walked downstairs, and opened my old laptop, the one Melanie said was too slow and that I hadn't touched in months. It still had all our shared passwords synced into it. Bank accounts, phone carriers, streaming apps, the digital history of our marriage. It was still mine. So was the truth. I started with the basics. Our family credit card. Melanie used to say she hated using plastic, only for emergencies, she'd say. But lately, she'd been making a lot of emergency purchases. I scrolled through the past 3 months. Dinners in town, floral arrangements, Airbnb rentals, one of them just 10 minutes from our old house. A $210 charge at a high-end boutique I didn't recognize. And then, one that turned my stomach. A receipt from Greystone Furniture. The address listed for delivery? Our old house. I leaned back, staring at the screen. She furnished it. She never let go. My hands moved faster now. I opened the location sharing app we used to use for safety. Find Us. We hadn't used it in over a year, but I'd never unlinked her account. Maybe she forgot. I click her name. It pulsed for a moment, a blank gray circle, and then it pinged. Our old house. She was there. Right now. My jaw tightened. The cursor hovered over the refresh button, but I didn't press it again. I didn't need to. Then I remembered something small, stupid, insignificant at the time. Years ago, after a rash of garage break-ins in our neighborhood, I'd installed a motion-triggered camera in our garage. It was cheap, nothing fancy, but it automatically uploaded footage to a hidden cloud folder linked to my email. I'd only set it to keep recordings for a week. I hadn't thought about it in years. I opened my inbox. After some digging, I found the folder. The auto notifications had been getting filtered as spam for months. Hundreds of them. Motion detected garage camera. I opened one from 2 weeks ago. The screen loaded slowly. There was the familiar garage. Dim, dusty, the old rake still leaning in the corner. The timestamp read 11:03 p.m. Then the overhead light clicked on, and in walked Melanie. She was laughing. Not alone. Trey followed behind her. Same gym hoodie. Same smug grin. She turned to him, still laughing, and he pulled her into his arms like they'd done this 100 times before. She dropped her bag. He kissed her neck. Her hands ran up under his shirt. And then he kissed her. Long, deep. Familiar. On the garage threshold of our home. The home I helped build. The one we chose together. The one where we brought Tyler home from the hospital. The couch they collapsed onto a few minutes later. I built that with my bare hands during our first year of marriage, back when money was tight and love was real. I didn't realize I was shaking until my hand dropped from a mouse. I stared at the screen. They were laughing again. Melanie rested her head on his shoulder. I muted the volume. I didn't need to hear it. My heart already did. My chest felt like it was caving in. Everything I'd built, every sacrifice, every late-night shift, every "we'll get through this," was crumbling in front of me on a grainy camera feed. She had brought him into our home, into the space where I once felt safe, where I once thought love lived. And then she kissed him again, her hands resting on the couch. The very couch I built. Chapter 6. The confrontation. The pain had settled into something cold. Not rage. Not grief. Something sharper. Cleaner. Clarity. It had taken me a few days to gather myself, to move through the stages of heartbreak, not like waves, but like calculations. I didn't lash out. I didn't scream. I planned. I watched the footage over and over until it no longer shocked me, until it became data. I cataloged everything. The dates, the receipts, the audio from her calls she carelessly made on Bluetooth when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I even scrolled back through her old photos and fitness posts. There he was, Trey, appearing more and more often in the background like a virus multiplying in plain sight. I didn't tell Tyler. He'd already carried too much. Instead, I went quiet. And in the silence, I built the stage. I rented out a cozy private dining room at a rustic upscale spot in town, the kind of place Melanie loved to show off in. Candlelit, polished oak floors, velvet chairs, a long oak table that could seat 10. I made sure the lighting was flattering. I didn't want drama. I wanted dignity. Then I extended the invitations. To Melanie. Let's talk. Just dinner. No arguing. No tension. Let's try to fix things, or at least understand them. Bring your friends, too, if that makes you feel safe. To Trey. Hey, let's stop being adversaries. I want to hear your side of things. You obviously care about her. Let's be adults. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That was all I needed. Melanie was more cautious. She called twice, but I didn't answer. I wanted her walking into the unknown, not steering it. Meanwhile, I checked and rechecked the equipment. A small hidden camera embedded in a bookshelf. A voice recorder underneath the centerpiece. And a sleek portable projector already synced to my phone, with the garage footage queued up, paused at the perfect moment, her laugh just before their kiss. The last piece? A small mahogany box on the table. Inside, the receipts. The location logs. Screenshots. Printouts. All of it arranged in perfect order. They arrived late. Of course. Melanie wore a wine-colored dress, too tight, too young. She smiled like she was walking into a stage performance. Behind her trailed Trey, smug in a tight black blazer, chewing gum like he was headed to a club. Two of their friends followed, a woman I vaguely recognized from her yoga group, and some slick-haired guy I'd never seen before. Melanie scanned the room. Wow, Jackson, this is nice. She glanced at the table. Kind of formal, huh? I stood and smiled gently. Just wanted to give the night the respect it deserves. They sat. Trey slouched immediately, unbuttoning his jacket. I thought this was going to be a fight or something. You're not going to poison the wine, are you? I chuckled. Nothing like that. Wine was poured. The first few minutes were filled with hollow compliments and fake laughter. Melanie leaned in once, touching my wrist. It means a lot that you're doing this, she said softly. I was worried you'd go crazy or something. I did. I replied evenly for a moment. Then I stood. I want to start with something simple. Honesty. They looked up. I pressed a button on my phone. The lights dimmed slightly. The projector kicked on behind me. The wall lit up, fuzzy at first, then crystal clear. Melanie, laughing in the garage. Trey behind her. Their bodies pressed together. That kiss. She froze mid-breath. The room went silent. The clip played for 12 full seconds before I paused it. Melanie's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her wine glass trembled in her hand. Trey leaned back slowly in a chair, lips curling. Damn, he said, chuckling. You were filming us? That's kind of creepy, man. That was my home, I said. You weren't invited. Melanie swallowed. Jackson, I can explain. It's not what? I raise a hand. Please, let's not insult everyone here. I walked to the head of the table. Calm, cold. Then I opened the box and slid it toward her. Inside are all the lies you didn't bother hiding well. The charges to the furniture store. The Airbnb stays. The text messages. The location logs. She didn't touch it. She just stared at the box like it was a coffin. Trey leaned in, smirking. Look, man, be real. You should be thanking me. She needed this. You? You were what? Working late? Fixing toilets? She needed someone who showed up. That was the moment the room shifted. Even their smug yoga friend stiffened. I smiled at Trey. You think that makes you a man? He laughed again. Makes me a better one than you, clearly. I walked to the door, opened it, and waved someone in. A man entered, mid-40s tin suit, clipboard in hand. I turned to Melanie. This is Evan. He's the new owner of the house. Melanie blinked. What? The house? I repeated calmly. You can keep it. I already sold it to someone else. You're trespassing now. Chapter 7. Fallout. The silence afterward was the strangest part. Not a storm. Not screaming. Just absence, like someone had pulled the soul out of the world. Melanie didn't come home that night. Neither did Trey. When the dinner ended, they left in separate cars. She didn't even say goodbye. She looked like a marionette with her strings cut. Trey was laughing nervously as he walked out, trying to save face. But the smirk was gone by the time I told him I had already forwarded the video to his office's HR department. And I had. 2 days later, the call came through. Mr. Andrews? A clipped voice on the other end. This is Steve Wexler from Goldside Fitness Corporate. Thank you for your documentation. We take these matters very seriously. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. But I imagined the fallout, the company scrambling to save face, the womanizing trainer they had promoted as a family wellness advocate, now exposed as sleeping with a married client in her family home. He was gone by Friday. His Instagram went silent. His LinkedIn changed from senior health coordinator to looking for opportunities. I watched it all from my small apartment, sitting on the edge of a twin-size bed with one pillow and no headboard, my laptop glowing like a television set in a war shelter. I didn't feel triumphant, just hollow, but it was a clean kind of hollow. Melanie called that night. I didn't pick up. Then came the text. Jackson, please. We need to talk. I messed up, but I never wanted to hurt you. Can we at least speak like adults? You can't just blow up everything. Tyler isn't answering me. What did you tell him? You don't have to do this. You're better than this. She was right about that last part. I was, but I did it anyway. The divorce papers were filed within the week. Grounds. Adultery. Accompanied by hundreds of pages of supporting documentation. I attached transcripts of her messages, where she told her friend Marnie that she was tired of being the only one trying, and how Trey makes me feel like I'm madder again. I included screenshots of their calendar overlaps, her location logs that placed her at the old house at 2 a.m. on nights. She told me she was at yoga, and photos, so many photos. She didn't contest. She didn't have the strength. But I didn't stop there. My lawyer, a quiet bulldog named Carla Monroe, filed a civil suit alongside the divorce petition. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Melanie had paraded her betrayal not just in secret, but in ways that had damaged me professionally, emotionally, and socially. We compiled dates, therapy receipts, work logs of missed hours, the timeline of deception. I didn't expect to win that part, but I wanted it on record. I wanted her legacy to include what she had done to the man who gave her 20 years. Tyler didn't say anything for days. He came home late, often going straight to his room. He wasn't avoiding me, just processing. I let him. Then, one night, he came to the doorway while I was washing dishes. "Hey," he said, hands in his hoodie pocket. "Hey, kiddo," I said, nodding at the couch. "You want to talk?" He sat quietly. For once, the TV was off. Just the hum of the fridge behind us. He looked down at his hands. "I didn't tell you everything that night. About the house." I stopped wiping the plate. Let the silence give him room. I knew. About Trey. About what Mom was doing, he said, voice cracking a little. I saw his car there a few times after school. One night, I stayed late at my friend's and came by to grab my charger. I looked through the window and saw them. On the couch. I inhaled slowly. He swallowed. "I wanted to tell you. I really did. But I thought, maybe you already knew. Or maybe it would break you. I wasn't sure which would be worse." I put the plate down. Dry my hands. Sat beside him. "You weren't supposed to carry that," I said. He nodded, eyes glossy but refusing to cry. "I watched you suffer silently, Dad," he whispered. I knew I couldn't respect Mom after this. I put my arm around his shoulders, and for the first time in months, I felt something return, not a full sense of peace, not forgiveness, but the feeling of being seen, of not being alone. We sat in silence for a long time, just breathing, not rebuilding, not healing, but beginning. Chapter 8. The Phoenix. The mornings were quiet now. No shrill phone buzzes at dawn. No angry footsteps pacing the hallway. No sharp sighs over burnt toast or forgotten errands. Just the soft hum of wind through the pine trees outside the window and the rhythmic chirping of unseen birds somewhere in the distance. Jackson had moved 2 states away, to a small town where no one knew his name. The house was modest, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a porch that faced the sunrise. Nothing extravagant, just enough space to stretch out, but not enough to feel hollow. He hadn't intended to run away. He just needed to start again, somewhere his memories couldn't find him so easily. The divorce had finalized 3 months ago. The civil suit ended quietly with a settlement. Melanie didn't fight. She avoided the trial altogether, signed the papers without fanfare. Maybe guilt, maybe shame, maybe just exhaustion. Tyler visited twice a month. They'd fish, cook together, or just sit in the living room with old movies. The silences between them had grown comfortable again. Healing came slowly, but it came. Jackson jogged every morning. At first, it was just to keep his mind occupied. He wasn't chasing health. He was running from the ghosts. But over time, it became something else. He liked the rhythm, the burn in his calves, the simplicity of it. 1 foot, then the other. On a crisp Sunday evening, he stopped by the community park after a long jog. There was a small group gathering at the far end of the trail, lawn chairs, thermoses, a table with lemonade and mismatched mugs. A weekly community meetup, the sign said. He hesitated. The old Jackson would have walked right past it, nodded politely, and kept moving. But the man standing here now, thinner, grayer, a little more scarred, walked over and took a seat on the grass. First time, someone asked beside him. He turned to see her. Lena, late 30s, maybe early 40s. Chestnut hair tied back loosely. Her jeans were faded, sneakers worn down, and her face was clear of makeup. But there was a softness in her eyes, a stillness, not the glassy, distracted glaze of someone pretending to listen. Real attention. "Yeah," Jackson said. "Just moved in a couple months ago. Welcome to Briar Ridge," she said with a small smile. "We're the most exciting thing happening on a Sunday night around here. But we have good lemonade." He chuckled. It caught him off guard. He hadn't laughed like that in a while. They talked. Nothing heavy. Weather. Trails. A dog that barked like a goose down the block. She told him she'd lived here 5 years. Divorced. No kids. Ran a small interior design business from home. "My couch has moved 7 times in 3 years," she joked. And Jackson listened. Carefully. Not with suspicion, but with presence. When he mentioned he'd been married once, she just nodded. Didn't pry. That mattered more than he realized. They ran into each other a few more times over the next few weeks, at the park, at the farmer's market, at the library of all places. Each time, Lena greeted him with the same calm demeanor. Not flirtatious. Not needy, just present. One evening, as they sipped coffee on a bench near the town lake, she looked over and asked, "Do you ever miss it?" "Miss what?" he said, watching the water. "Who you were before it all changed." Jackson thought for a long time. "I miss the simplicity," he said. "The way I used to believe in things, without needing to question everything. Loyalty, partnership, the idea that love was enough." She nodded. "Me too." There was no awkward silence, just shared understanding. Over time, something unfamiliar began to take root. Not romance, not yet. Something deeper, safer, trust. Jackson found himself opening up, not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, telling her about his past in pieces. She never pushed, never tried to play therapist. She just listened, occasionally offering a small comment or quiet nod that let him know she was still there, still present. And in that space, Jackson began to find his voice again. Not the version of himself who smoothed over every problem to keep the peace. Not the man who twisted himself into knots to avoid confrontation or made excuses for someone else's deception. This new voice was quieter, but firmer. A man who had walked through fire and come out with scars. Yes, but also clarity. He started saying no more. He no longer apologized when he didn't mean it. He didn't fear silence. He didn't tolerate disrespect, even from himself. One day, as they sat at Lena's porch with mugs of tea in hand, watching a storm roll in, she looked at him sideways. "You're different," she said. "I don't know who you were before, but you're standing tall now." Jackson let the words hang in the air. He didn't respond right away, but for the first time in a long time, he believed it. Chapter 9. A Lesson in Ashes. The envelope arrived without warning. No return address. Just his name in familiar handwriting that made Jackson's gut clench tighter than he wanted to admit. The slant of the letters, the way the J curved, he'd seen on birthday cards, grocery lists, post-it notes on the fridge. Melanie. He stared at it for a full minute before setting it down on the kitchen counter without opening it. It sat there for 3 days. Every time he walked past, it called to something buried deep inside. Curiosity, maybe, or closure, but mostly restraint. He finally opened it on a quiet Thursday evening, just as the sky was melting into orange and gray over the hills. The letter was handwritten, 2 pages. Jackson didn't sit down. He read it standing at the kitchen counter, back straight, heart steady. "Jackson, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if this letter will reach you. Maybe I'm writing it more for myself than for you. I messed up. Badly. Not just the affair, not just Trey, but the way I treated you. You were always there, always solid. And I resented your stability because it reminded me of everything I lacked in myself. You deserved better than the way I discarded you. I've lost friends. The house is empty. Trey is gone. Turns out the people who cheer you on when you're selfish don't stick around when the spotlight fades. Tyler barely speaks to me. I hear he's doing well with you. I'm glad. He's a good kid. He saw more than I realized. I won't reach out again. I just needed to say this out loud, even if you never respond. I'm sorry. You were the best part of my life, and I only saw it after I set it on fire. Melanie." Jackson folded the letter slowly, calmly. There were no tears, no shaking hands, just a deep breath as he slid it into the drawer next to old bills and takeout menus. He didn't need to respond. Some things are better buried in silence. Summer came like a quiet promise. Warm nights, soft winds, the smell of blooming jasmine near the back fence. Tyler's graduation was held in the high school football field. Folding chairs stretched across the grass, proud parents clapping beneath a sea of cheap plastic balloons. Jackson stood near the back with a camera around his neck and a strange tightness in his chest. He hadn't realized how much this moment would mean. Tyler spotted him from a stage, gave him a quick nod. That silent, knowing kind. The kind that said, "I see you." I know. They hadn't talked much about the past since moving. Tyler didn't need to. He showed it in his presence, his respect, the way he gravitated toward Jackson with a quiet loyalty that spoke louder than any apology Melanie could have written. The after party was small, just a few friends, Lena, and some of Tyler's classmates. Nothing extravagant, just a cookout in Jackson's backyard, under strings of soft lights and a sky full of stars. They gathered around the fire pit later that night. Lena handed Jackson a drink. Tyler poked at the fire with a long stick, sparks jumping into the air like fireflies. When the group quieted down, Jackson raised his glass. "I wasn't planning to say anything," he began, his voice even grounded. "But watching you walk that stage today, Tyler, I felt something I can't quite explain. Pride, sure, but something deeper." The group leaned in attentive. "Loyalty," Jackson continued, his eyes locking with his son's. "It isn't about being perfect. It's about being present and seeing who stands beside you when the house burns down." A pause. He looked around at the quiet faces. Lena smiled gently beside him. Tyler gave a firm nod. "You stood by me," Jackson said, "and I'll never forget that." The clink of glasses followed. No over-the-top cheering, just warmth, a shared moment between people who had weathered storms. Later, after the guests had left and the fire was just embers, Jackson sat alone on the porch. The night was still. Crickets hummed low in the bushes. Tyler had gone to bed, and Lena had lingered long enough to kiss him on the cheek before slipping away into the quiet. He leaned back in the old rocking chair, eyes on the stars above. His thoughts drifted not to the pain, not anymore, but to everything that came after, to the strength he never knew he had, to the clarity that came only after everything else had been scorched away, to the life he was now building, slowly, deliberately, without pretense or apology. There would still be hard days. He knew that. Grief didn't leave cleanly. It lingered, a shadow at the edges of your peace. But he was no longer running. He was choosing, reclaiming, becoming. He closed his eyes, let the cool breeze brush his face. And he thought of fire, not as destruction, but as transformation. Sometimes the fire doesn't just destroy, it forges something stronger.